Hello YouTube, it's me again. I'm actually just going to let you watch this. This is me driving around in Turkey again, and I've got the audio muted on it as I got a friend in the car and we're talking back and forth, which would drown out this video. But what I wanted to cover in this video is the importance of education. Now, in the last video, I said, you know, to do what was right, even when it's inconvenient to do so. If your boss is telling you, do this, do this, do this, and it's wrong, you need to man up and do what's right and not do it. Now, there's a funny thing going to happen on this video here in a moment. You're going to see a woman on the side of the road, an older woman, and she's going to chunk a big bag of trash down the hill. You can tell this lady's done this more than once. Matter of fact, it may have already happened. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. But anyway, it's a funny scene. But I also said that math was very important, and it is. It really is. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that. I'll get my math videos going here, and I will show you how to make math easy and fun, and show you some parlor tricks. But just trust me, math is important, so is education. My parents did not agree, and a lot of the churches did not agree with making people read Lord of the Flies in school, and I never actually had to read it because every school that I went into where we were going to have to read it and do a book report on it, I would move away before we did the book report. My dad moved a lot. He was a traveling salesman. But here's the deal. From what I understand, the gist of the movie is you get a bunch of people together, there's no adults, and they wind up just becoming a bunch of undereducated, well, for lack of a better word, morons that couldn't do anything right. It's basically Idiocracy. And the movie Idiocracy is a great movie. But the problem is, here she is. She's going to, oh, she was in that van. I didn't even see the van. Yeah, she chunked that thing over there like it was cool. I bet she came from that van that was on the, as many times I've watched this, I had never noticed that van. But anyway, the thing about education is, it's important. You don't want to be the uneducated fool unless you are like a multimillionaire and you don't have to worry about being right or knowing how to do something. You just put some money towards it and it'll go away. But chances of you being a multimillionaire and being dumb are extremely small. And if you are, it was inherited money and you're going to lose it all quickly anyway, because you're just going to have to throw money at everything. But when I was in college, I was going through computer sciences, and we had this one guy, I forget his name, but I'll never forget him. He was from India, and he made a statement to the teacher in front of me. Now, at this point, I'd been working IT for 10 years or so, and I was in classes that were not challenging to me. Matter of fact, I was kind of frustrated that I wasn't learning what I needed to learn to help me on my job. I was learning it's like a rocket scientist going back to school and being taught how to add and subtract. All right, we know how to do that. I need to know more than addition and subtraction. Well, addition and subtraction will build into what you need eventually, but the build-up may be slow. Look at the way these people drive. He was he was in the wrong lane. He was in the outgoing lane to go around me at the last second. Nice people, just not very smart. Okay, so anyway, we had this Indian, and when I say Indian guy, I'm not talking about North American Indian. I'm talking about a guy who was actually born and raised in the country of India. And he says, I can't wait to graduate. I'll never have to open another book in my life. Now you're going through computer school, and everybody knows that computers change practically every day. You buy a computer today, and it's already out of style tomorrow. You know, the next latest and greatest thing. And how are you going to be a technician if you don't keep up? So in the computer industry, they have different testing standards. You can have a degree all you want, but they also expect you to have these certifications. One of the certification companies is CompTIA, and they've got a ton of different certs. And then another one is Microsoft, and another one is like Cisco. But for the most part, a lot of these certs will expire in 3 years. Why? Because they figure at 3 years, if you haven't learned the new stuff, you're going to be so obsolete that you're useless. And companies are demanding that you get these certs. They could care less if you've got a college degree. That just means that at one time you knew something. They want you to have the certs to prove that you are current on your data. So there's a ton of free education. It's on the YouTube. It's on various government websites, all kinds of places. Just whatever your little heart desires, there's all kinds of free education out there. There is no reason for this world to be as dumb as it is in the year 2024. I had to think about that. I keep wanting to say 2023 still. 2023 stinks so bad for me. And I guess 2024 hasn't been a whole lot better. Although I got over one little bump and I'm still floating high off of that. Only a couple of hours ago that I read that email where they finally woke up and realized that they were wrong about my mortgage, and I'm still floating high off of that. I've created several videos since then. I'm happy. I want to share that happiness with the world. But an interesting thing right along in here someplace, I think on the bend of that curve, I don't think you can see it on the camera unless you see it quickly. There is a old bridge that was built by the Romans when they controlled Turkey back in this bridge is probably nearly 2,000 years old. It would be right down in that little rocky area there. I'll see if I can pause it. No, actually, you're not going to see it. Oh, it's right down in that little area right there. See if I can pause it. If I see it, I'll pause it. No, I'd have to turn that camera more. I'll try to get a picture of that and get that up on the internet. And this was before the earthquakes here. But anyway, there's all kinds of free education out there. And if you took advantage of that, you could actually better yourself. I worked with one guy, he would not open a book for nothing. And yet he would look at me and say, well, how are you so smart? But one of his favorite sayings were, people who can teach cannot do, and people who can do cannot teach. That's absolutely wrong. Whenever you go to take a test, I don't care if it's in school, like high school or elementary school or college, or if you're post-college and you got a job and you're going to take one of these certification tests through CompTIA or Microsoft. When you go in to take the test, are you nervous? If so, chances are really good that you don't know the material very well. If you know the material well enough to be able to sit back and talk, like I'm talking right now, I'm not reading from anything. I swear to God, I'm not reading from anything. But if you know it well enough that you can sit down and talk about it like this, well, if you fail the test, you shouldn't feel bad about it because that means that it tested some stuff that you didn't know. But the whole thing is, or the test itself was wrong. But the whole thing is, if you know your material very, very, very well enough to be able to sit down and talk about it like this, then you can teach it. And if you can teach it and you can talk about it like this, chances are really good that you're going to be able to do it. And if you can do it, then people are going to look at you and go, how are you so smart? How is it that you know how to do all this stuff and I don't? Well, because I open books and I read, I watch videos, I try to improve myself on a daily basis. But when you're not trying to improve yourself and you're not making any headway on improving yourself, then there is absolutely no need for you to complain about somebody else knowing more than you, because that's your fault. It's not the fact that they're smarter than you. They don't just naturally acquire this knowledge. It takes a little bit of work. I love it when you see these channels say, learn Turkish in 5 minutes. Well, you're not going to learn Turkish in 5 minutes. You're not even going to learn one sentence in 5 minutes, you know. But what they're talking about is 5 minutes a day. And yes, you do need repetition to learn. But so far today, all I've been making are words of wisdom videos, if you will. I haven't gone into any teaching or anything like that today. It's sort of a gloat day for me. I'm so glad to be out from underneath that house mortgage and to have them officially recognize it, which they should have done months ago. I'm still reeling from that. I'm like, woo, I'm so happy about it. But at the same time, I'm still slightly frustrated that it took 2 YouTube videos and a ton of threats and legal action promises, because I guarantee you they were more than threats. If they hadn't gotten their head out of the sand, it would have led to a actual lawsuit, one that they would not have been happy about. But anyway, that's the importance of education right there. That'll keep you out of stuff like that. That company absolutely I hope they use those videos for training, because those were semi-decently made videos. I didn't go into it as... I should have made a third video with my spreadsheet, going over it line item by line item like I did theirs, to show and prove that my math actually worked. But I went over the math well enough that you should be able to get the clue on how to do math. And it is important to keep your education up, because especially if you're in a field like that where you're dealing with money and loans. Because if you get to where you're relying upon the computer only, and the computer has a problem and the problem's pointed out to you and you don't understand it, that means you're incompetent in your job. Just like computer technicians, you see how a computer is supposed to work, but what happens if you get one diode on the motherboard that shorts, and the computer powers up, it starts up, it loads the program, but it keeps spitting out incorrect data, or you're unable to digitally sign a document, or your email won't send, but you can receive email, and things just don't make sense to you. They're random. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And you take it to the computer tech. Well, he knows how it's supposed to work, but he can't figure out what the problem is. He can't figure out what the problem is because at one time he was trained, but he's forgotten everything because he's arrived and he doesn't have to study anymore. You see people like this all the time. TV repair shops back in the 70s, 80s, worse. They were actually pretty good. In the 90s and 2000s, they got worse. They got really bad. Take a TV in and they tell you, well, your tube is going bad, and that means that the cost of repairs is going to be more than the cost of the set. So you owe us $150 for the troubleshooting, but we're sorry, unless you really want us to fix it, this really isn't worth fixing. And they convince you to pay them $150, and oh, by the way, you don't want the set, so you leave it with them. And they were not smart enough to fix them for the most part, so they just wound up throwing them out. 99.9% of the time, it was not the tube. And if you're older and you had one of these sets and you're listening to this now, you're probably going to get mad. because it wasn't the tube. It was most likely the low voltage power supply had a 25-cent diode that shorted, and if you fixed that diode, which took about 2 minutes to pull that diode out and 3 to put it back in, because you had to clean it up a little bit, and trim the leads off the diode to the proper length, and then apply solder and make sure that it cooled without cracking, the TV set would work again. Those cathode ray tubes that they were blaming it on hardly ever went out. And the reason they blamed it on the cathode ray tubes, they couldn't figure out the problem. So they just took the most expensive part and said, this is what's wrong with it. And you're paying them $150 or $200 in some cases so that they can continue to be dumb and never educate themselves and learn how to properly troubleshoot a TV set. Not that I know anything about TV sets. I used to fix them all the time. So when I'm saying this, it's coming from an authoritative point of view. All right, so what am I saying? I'm saying go find those sites that are free. I will throw some data out there, but you can Google it too and start re-educating yourself. Spend 10 minutes a day learning something new. Do not vegetate. Do not let us go into the world of idiocracy. We've got several billion people on the earth right now. I think it's like close to I don't know. I'd have to look it up. It's been a minute since I looked at it. But we got too many people on the earth right now that are not educated, or they're undereducated, or they don't care. And that's why our world is not as good today as it was even 50 years ago. People are not paying attention to what they do. They're not learning. They're not taking pride in what they do. And they're figuring, oh, well, I can quit at any time. I'll just stay on here as long as I'm having enough fun. And then the bosses are getting bad, too. Why did I turn the windshield wiper? Oh, I think I tried to clean the windshield. Anyway, that was weird. Try not to vegetate. Try to improve yourself. You know, the bosses, they get to be just as dumb as the other workers, and then they make a place bad. How do we start it? One person at a time. No, I'm starting this with an entire YouTube audience. I would love for this thing to go viral. I know it won't. But if it went viral and everybody started, oh, hey, I need to educate myself, I would be so happy. But even if one person learns something from this, I would be happy about that too. Well, I want to thank you again for watching. If you did watch us all the way to the end, I want to thank you for it, and I hope that it helps you in some way as you move through this life. And trust me, it's worth living. It really is. If you don't think so, let me know. I will work with you. I will help you try to find that little glimmer that will help you keep going. Because, you know, life is worth it. Thank you again, and have a great day.